Alright, what is up guys? In this video today, it's going to be on how to optimize your hormones to get to sub 12% body fat, optimize all your health and fitness, make the best progress that you can, and really just get the best results from the effort that you're already putting in by pretty much upgrading your fundamental, like under the hood hormones that play such a big role in fat loss and muscle growth at the same time. So let's dive in. So first off, what is endocrinology? What we're actually talking about today. So the study of hormones is endocrinology. Basically, all these different glands and hormones that we have in the body have a really big impact on, our fitness, our fat loss, muscle growth, the results that we get. And specifically in this video, I'll cover how they impact like what we actually want with our fitness, our fat loss, and muscle growth goals. And I want to say, like, I was affected by this growing up as a kid. So if you don't know, I was hypothyroid as a kid. Like when I was 12 years old, I started taking a medication for thyroid because my body just didn't produce it, and it did affect me growing up. Like I remember just being like very low energy, like I was tired a lot, I was pretty low appetite, I had all the symptoms of low thyroid, and it really kind of forced me to learn about all these different health topics, all these different things about endocrinology. And that's a big reason why I'm so into like the fundamentals and the roots of fitness, not just the calories in, calories out, but more understanding the body, understanding what's actually going on with endocrinology. That's like one aspect of what I do with my coaching and what I really like to focus on. And it's kind of a blessing to me now because I see it as such a positive, because it really forced me to learn these things which I can use and help you guys and use for myself as well. So that's how I see it. So hormones, how you want to look at this is basically they're amplifiers to your progress with your fitness. So if you have optimal hormones, you're going to have the optimal progress that you want. You can have perfect training, you can do everything right, putting in all the effort, kind of like I was doing like when I first started in the gym, but you can have bad progress because of your hormones, and they're just not going to be optimized in the best possible way. It's really good for fitness, of course, good for your mood, how you actually feel throughout the day, like having, good mood, have good energy, like actually feeling energized, not always tired throughout the day, and good vitality, your drive towards life, like how you actually attack the day. A lot of it is impacted through your hormones that you have. So not optimizing your hormones is basically losing you the progress and kind of taking away the life that you should have and that progress that you should be making in the gym. Because again, you could do every single thing right, but if these like stats, like that's kind of why I put this here, like they're kind of like stats in your character as a human. If these aren't optimized to the best that they can, you're just going to be stalled. You're going to be holding yourself back. That's why it's so critical to get this right. And this is a huge part of my coaching. Like with my guys, I really like to focus on giving you like optimal lifestyle things and like things with your nutrition as well to optimize this. We'll get into this in the video as well, but really making it like specific to you and actually like making sure you're getting the best results is what I really like to focus on. I don't like to do cookie cutter generic plans. Like that's what I'm very, very against. So take pride in that. So what we're covering today, the key players, and this is going to be a 2-part series, by the way. So there's so much to go into. I was going to do all this in one video, but I started recording this and it was going to take way too long. So we're going to split this up into 2 parts. Today we're going to talk about testosterone, growth hormone, thyroid, IGF-1, insulin, and cortisol. And then part 2 are going to be these. These are a little bit more advanced, but still very, very important to understand. So we'll dive into this in the next video. But the full endocrinology, like even besides all of these, it goes way deeper than these key hormones. Like getting these right will save you so much time and effort. Like there's a lot that goes into it than this, but truly, like if you can get this right, if you can get the hormones right, pretty much everything else will be right from that, because a lot of the factors that go into optimizing hormones will also optimize your training, will also optimize your health in general. Like it all plays a part as a system. That's why I teach this in my coaching. And by the way, if you guys want to work with me, you can schedule a call in the description. It'll lead you to basically what I do. Like it'll explain everything for you. But it's such a foundational part of fitness and health in general, because it's like how your body's impacted by the fundamental like biological things that's going on. So let's actually dive into these. So number 1, probably the most important one and the most common one that people talk about with fitness is going to be testosterone. So the benefits, you might already know this, you might not, but I want to dive into this. So MPS fully turned on, so like this is muscle protein synthesis. You're going to grow more muscle, lower body fat storage. You're going to have higher recovery, higher libido, sex drive is going to be way up. Can be a good or bad thing just depending on who you are. And then your motivation and drive is going to be through the roof. Like this is it's outside of fitness, this is going to impact so much of your life, even with your success in business, in work, in your relationships, all that, like even all the other hormones, but specifically testosterone, because it has such like a how do you say it's like behavioral effect as well. Like you really like act like as a different person. If you have low testosterone, it's going to be slowing down your muscle growth. Fat storage is going to accelerate. It's basically what it's costing you if you're not optimizing this. Estrogen rises, which is basically making you more feminine and like female. So like you're not going to obviously like be as anabolic. Like that's just how it works. Worse recovery, low libido, motivation, and drive is kind of the opposite of what we just talked about there. And a really big part of testosterone is the free versus bound testosterone. So we can only use free testosterone. Basically, how you want to think about this is we have the total testosterone that our body produces, but then only a little bit of that is actually freed up by the body to be acted on our androgen receptors. And it's around 2%. This can be a lot higher if you're optimizing for this. And that's what I do with my guys. But basically, you want to free up as much of the total testosterone that you can produce. Like number one is producing the total testosterone and then freeing up that testosterone. And another thing is actually having the androgen receptors as sensitive and as dense as possible. Again, there's a lot of density and like depth that goes into this, but it's kind of an overview of what to do. So total test equals free plus bound. And what's actually binding up your testosterone to make it basically unactive, not bioavailable, is the SHBG, so sex hormone binding globulin, and albumin. This binds up to testosterone, making it inactive. So really what we want to do is produce as much total test and then lower the SHBG and albumin. Specifically, SHBG is going to be the one that actually like binds up like the active form. And if we can do that in the most optimal way, then we're going to have the best results, have all of these benefits here that we just covered. So how to actually optimize this is dietary fat and cholesterol. It's going to produce as much testosterone as we can. So, foods like eggs are really good. Shrimp is really good. Ground beef, like things with high cholesterol, like that's the precursor to actually make all the sex hormones. So that's not going to be a bad thing in your diet. A lot of people think that cholesterol is going to be bad. Do not fall for that trap. It's actually a good thing for you. Then specifically zinc and magnesium for the micronutrients. This is why I cover micronutrients in all my nutrition plans. Like it's very important to get this right. If you don't have optimal micronutrients, you're not going to have optimal hormones. And as you're going to learn, and as you're learning right now, it's very important to get that right for your fitness and health in general. Vitamin D, very important, like pretty direct correlation to testosterone production. And then on top of this, sunlight. So not just vitamin D supplementation, but also getting sunlight on your skin as well. It's going to produce more testosterone. Then lowering cortisol and prolactin. Cortisol I'm going to cover in this video, and then prolactin, I can actually add this to the next video. It's not on the list, but I think it's very well worth learning. And then higher dopamine. So dopamine also lowers prolactin, so that's kind of why it's in there. It's like tied into this. And I did make a video on how to increase your baseline dopamine. This all goes into pretty much all the hormones I'm going to cover today. Then, again, of course, unbinding SHBG, and then aromatase. So if you have more body fat on you, you're basically converting all the testosterone, not all of it, but a lot of the testosterone that you have to estrogen. So you're basically just being lower testosterone just because you have more fat on your body. So getting leaner is going to be a big part of even increasing testosterone. So it kind of plays like a cyclical loop in that way. Next up, we have growth hormone. So benefits of this is going to be fat oxidation, stimulates IGF-1, which we'll about to get into. Training recovery improves, anti-catabolic during a deficit. So getting this right when you're cutting is really, really important to not break down muscle. And then also, like if you're in a fasted state, we'll get into this as well. But yeah, this is very important in a cut specifically. And then having high energy as well. So just like having high energy throughout the day, you feel good and sharp at your highest optimal level. And low growth hormone, pretty much the opposite. Fat burning reduced, recovery worsens, lower IGF-1, meaning you're less anabolic. Using more muscle for a fuel in a deficit, more body fat on the same calories and lower energy. So this is how you want to think about growth hormone. So you actually secrete it in pulses throughout the night. So 75% of growth hormone is released during your sleep. That's why it's really important to get your sleep right specifically for this. And the biggest pulse of the day is in the first 90 minutes of sleep. So like that really first section of sleep is really important for growth hormone. So how to actually optimize this is number one, obviously sleep, like really prioritizing this. Like I used to watch a lot of videos on fitness and I always used to hear of like, oh yeah, get good sleep. Like, of course, it's so fundamental. And like, I always knew it was true, but there's a difference between knowing getting good sleep is true and then actually prioritizing it, like having a system to follow to make sure you're getting good sleep and actually like function as you should as a human by getting good sleep. Like, it's so important because if you haven't had like consistent, like, if you track your sleep scores or just having really consistent optimized sleep, you know how good it feels. And like if you go back to getting like shitty sleep or just getting bad sleep, it's such a night and day difference. Like you just operate at such a lower level that you just have to get back to getting good sleep. Like I cannot express this enough because you just have to experience it for yourself. You just feel so good when you're getting good sleep for so many reasons, and it just plays such a big part of your life in general. So really get good sleep, protect the first 90 minutes, and then low insulin for sleep. So this is why I don't like to do high carbs at nighttime, because if you're going to raise your insulin actually like mitigates the growth hormone pulse. Like if you have high insulin at nighttime and then it carries on into your sleep, but then you had that first growth hormone pulse in your sleep, then it's going to pretty much negatively affect you there. If you have your post-workout meal at nighttime, I'm not saying don't do carbs because that's going to be a big important part of the post-workout meal, like I talk about in my other videos. There's a specific, it depends on when you're actually having that. Like there's a lot of factors that go into it, but like if you have any questions, you can message me. Like I'll be able to help you out, and also with my coaching as well. It's kind of exactly what I do for you guys. But other than that, intermittent fasting is really good for growth hormone. So I usually do some sort of intermittent fasting throughout the day, like at least like 16/8. Sometimes I won't even do it. Like it just depends on the day. Like I'm not super strict on it, but when I am like very, very like into, I wouldn't say into, but usually I'm doing at least 16/8, sometimes even more. Like for example, today I'll probably do like a 6-hour eating window and then fast for 18 hours in the day. So it's going to be good for growth hormone. Also sauna as well. So if you have any sort of sauna, like going in there and getting some sessions in there throughout the week is going to be really good for growth hormone. And then lowering body fat as well, similar to testosterone. Lower body fat is going to lead to higher growth hormone. Next up is thyroid. So benefits of thyroid, T3 and T4. It's the active form and then the one that converts into T3. So benefits are BMR is fully functioning, so your basal metabolic rate, how much energy and like calories you're burning at rest, like just living, just being alive. More caloric burn at rest, basically the same thing. Fat oxidation efficiency, so how much fat you're actually burning like as a fuel source to use like from your body, because you have to oxidize fat. Like this is a big misconception, is like, yeah, calories in, calories out matters, but if you can't oxidize the fat, like if your body doesn't know how to use your own body fat and use it as an energy source, then it won't actually like burn the fat. Like you have to oxidize the fats to be able to get leaner in the first place. So being more efficient at this is always going to help you get leaner, just at a more optimal, efficient rate. Mitochondria density and production maximized, recovery optimized, and body temperature regulated. And then hypothyroidism, like this is what I had when I was growing up. And there's even hyperthyroidism, which is pretty much like having too much thyroid, which has its own problems. So it's a really good sweet spot. Like you have to find the sweet spot with this, and optimizing this is very important for a lot of things in health and fitness. So BMR drops, weakness, you have less muscle growth, less fat oxidation, low energy, and you feel cold. Hyperthyroid is going to be a little bit different, just different symptoms there. But this is the one that I'm very familiar with because I did deal with this for a long time. Then how to find the sweet spot, or finding the sweet spot in general, just hypo versus hyper, kind of like I just talked about. So there's a fine ground that you want to hit. And then T3 versus T4. So your body, like through TSH, you're going to stimulate thyroid hormone, which is going to go into T4. And then your actual active form of T3 is what your body uses. And there's also reverse T3, which is kind of like mimicking T3. So it's basically blocking like the thyroid, it like mimics T3. So like it thinks it's making T3, but it's actually like not really active. So like you can have like on paper on the blood work, the T3 is good, but it might just be reverse T3, and you're just kind of like fucking yourself. It's so deep. Like endocrinology is a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, but I can even make way more in-depth videos on specifically each hormone. If you guys want that, like let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to make those. Like I would really like to explore like the in-depths of everything because I still learn, and I learn a lot even making these videos. So I think it'd be pretty cool, especially for my coaching and being just like as knowledgeable as I can to for myself and help you guys as well. So how to optimize this? Selenium and iodine, these are going to be the best micronutrients for this. So again, why micronutrients are so important. Also having good carb intake in your diet. So I talk a lot about like the timing of your carbs, which is very important for body composition. But then also into this, it's very good for stimulating thyroid hormone. So carbs are going to raise insulin, which are going to affect T4 and then convert into T3. And then lowering cortisol and then having adequate calories in the day. So like if you're just crashing your calories, and there's some use cases for this. Like I'm experimenting a lot in my fitness with other things. I'm going to make a lot of new videos on things I'm experimenting on, but that's for another day. But lowering calories like long term is going to be really bad for your thyroid and all your hormones in general, but specifically for your thyroid. So next up is IGF-1. So benefits: fully expressed mTOR, so basically the muscle growth signal that you get like at the biological level. This is the signal that drives muscle growth. Permanently raises muscle growth capacity. So this is kind of why you have that muscle memory. So if you've ever had a time where you get off the gym, like you've built muscle, but then you lost it, and then you come back to the gym, it's actually going to be easier because of the muscle memory. This is what's actually driving that in the first place is IGF-1. Then we have maximize MPS, just like testosterone, maximize bone density and connective tissue. And then having lower IGF-1, what's costing you from not optimizing this? Obviously less growth from the same training, like you're putting in the same effort, but just getting less growth from this. Slower recovery, and then less bone density, less joint and connective tissue repair. If you see this, like you might not think this is important for you now, but you know, in the long run, this is going to really affect you. Like even for me now, like I've been training for like 5 years at this point, and sometimes I'll even have like some aches in my joints. So I'm really taking care of the, you know, like connective tissue, joints, all these different things are going to be very important, like 10, 20, 50, 100 years down the line. So very, very important. So an actual thing about IGF-1 is there's systemic versus local IGF-1. So systemic liver IGF-1 comes from growth hormone release. So it's directly tied to growth hormone. Like if we go back to growth hormone, it stimulates IGF-1. So we're stimulating IGF-1 through growth hormone in the systemic liver. If we go back to this, we also have local muscle IGF-1, which is called MGF. So it's called mechanogrowth factors. So it's basically two different types of IGF-1. They have the same roles, but we can stimulate them in different ways from mechanical tension and then also from growth hormone from the liver. And this is what allows muscle memory, like I talked about earlier. How to optimize this is hitting leucine threshold at every single meal. So hitting leucine threshold, like getting enough protein in, like the minimum requirement for protein at each meal, adequate calories, and mechanical tension for the systemic or for the local IGF-1, like actual in the muscle, and then independent of the IGF-1 from the liver, and then growth hormone optimization, basically tying into growth hormone will go into the IGF-1 from the liver. So pretty key points to cover there. Then we have insulin, so timing and sensitivity dependent. So when you use insulin properly, I wouldn't think about this as like high or low because it always fluctuates just depending on what you're doing throughout the day. But if you're using this properly, the benefits are anti-catabolic, you're going to be insulin sensitive, delivers nutrients to the muscle cells efficiently, like nutrient partitioning, where the actual food that you're eating is going, either to muscle cells or to fat cells. Insulin is going to drive all of those nutrients, like to either one. And we want to really optimize for, obviously, partitioning to the muscle. Then also it does stimulate mTOR as well. So for muscle growth, timing insulin correctly, especially in that post-workout meal, is going to be the most beneficial, like by far the best way to raise insulin, because it actually has an anabolic effect on, like there's 3 levers to mTOR, which is going to be protein intake, mechanical tension, and insulin. So if we can time this in the post-workout meal, it's going to be the best possible way to do that. incorrect use, so this is really, really common, like if you're insulin resistant, low insulin sensitivity, this is going to be a really beneficial thing for you. And this is basically what we're wanting to avoid. So fat storage, like if you're spiking insulin at the wrong time, you're just going to be directing all those nutrients to fat storage, blocking fat burning on the same deficit by blocking lipolysis. So lipolysis is basically when our body fat, like the actual stored fat that we have, breaks down into the free fatty acids that we have, and then we can either oxidize those. So like going back to fat oxidation, we can oxidize that fat, or it's just going to be reacidified into body fat. So like if we can't oxidize the fats, if we can't even break it down in the first place through lipolysis, then we can't oxidize it. But if we can't oxidize the fat burning that we're having, then we can't even lose the body fat in the first place. A lot that goes into it. Then insulin resistance. So kind of just talked about this, the reverse of insulin sensitivity. Worse nutrient partitioning to the muscle, worse muscle growth, and then growth hormone will be suppressed, like I talked about with blocking the growth hormone's pulses in the night. So just making sure all these are optimized for you there. Next page. And then, so sensitivity versus resistance. So sensitive insulin sensitivity is basically you release less insulin required for the same job. So basically what insulin is doing in the blood. So when we raise blood glucose, we secrete insulin to clear out the blood glucose and drive nutrients into the respective cells. But if we can use less insulin for that, then it's going to be just cleaner partitioning because we don't have to basically like use as much insulin. It's not going to drive as much to the fat storage that we don't want. So if we're insulin resistant, we just have to use more insulin, and it's going to lead to more fat storage and basically like worse signals because we just have to crank up more and more and more insulin, especially if you keep doing this over time. So if you really get this insulin part right, like it's such a fundamental, like key hormone, like honestly very, very overlooked by many people. Less fat spillover, like the nutrient partitioning is going to be way better. And yeah, it's like most of this is talking about nutrient partitioning, how to actually maximize this for muscle growth. And even in a deficit as well, like you want to have max nutrient partitioning to drive the most muscle growth that we can. That's how you actually build muscle in a deficit. Like I've done this for myself. I've done this for my clients. We can use the principles of like how to control insulin correctly, time it at the right times, maximize our sensitivity to it. And that's how we drive muscle growth, even in a systemic overall caloric deficit. How to optimize this is in the post-workout window, have the most, like the majority of your carbs, like fast-acting glucose to actually drive the most insulin, and then following the Randall cycle as well. So not mixing fats and carbs, like high fats and high carbs consistently. I'm not saying you can never have like a burger or something. Like you just don't want to have that in your meal plan because if you're doing that every single day, it's just going to have worse partitioning, worse efficiency of the nutrients that you're eating. And then raising insulin sensitivity. So like the more sensitive we are to insulin, the better results that we will get, the more potent results that we'll get, the cleaner execution that we'll have from all of this that we just talked about. Then we have cortisol. So when well used, so unaltered testosterone, thyroid, growth hormone, like this really affects, like negatively affects all the different hormones that we kind of just talked about. Circadian rhythm imbalance. So in part 2, we'll talk about melatonin, how it actually controls the circadian rhythm, like how we actually fall asleep at nighttime, wake up in the morning. Like if you don't wake up energized and like alert, that's because your cortisol is low and your melatonin, your circadian rhythm is out of balance. Can maximize sleep and then also maximize, like we just talked about, insulin sensitivity from controlling cortisol. And then chronic cortisol, like if this is elevated all day, muscle protein breakdown increases. This is going to be a big part of why people lose muscle when they're cutting is because of high cortisol, higher fat storage, and then lower testosterone, all the different, hormones that we just talked about as well. So cortisol is natural. So you really don't want to think of cortisol as a completely bad thing. It is natural for cortisol to spike when you wake up. So like in the morning, cortisol should rise, and then throughout the day, it's going to go down, like as the circadian rhythm enters towards nighttime. And then melatonin is pretty much the opposite. It rises at nighttime when there's darkness, and then it goes down during the daytime or, in the morning when you're actually awake, and cortisol rises to wake you up. So this really sets your circadian rhythm, and, kind of like I just said, alert and wakefulness is in the AM and then sleepy in the PM if cortisol is low. Like a big reason why if you like toss and turn around in bed, like you can't really fall asleep like consistently at the same time, it's because your cortisol is high at nighttime, which is very unnatural. So if you can fix that, you're going to have so many great benefits. Like you're not going to be tired at nighttime. You're just going to make better progress and just like have a better life because you will get better sleep, and that's such a big fundamental lever of everything that we talked about. So how to optimize this is number one is getting good sleep, calories, training volume, and then lifestyle stress. So all these different things, like there's a lot that goes into each single one, but optimizing these is going to basically control your cortisol and keep that in rhythm, keep it in check so it's not elevated all throughout the day. So don't let this be your bottleneck in fitness. So again, you can have the perfect training, the highest efforts, but unoptimized progress or unoptimized hormones, and you're going to have bad progress. Like the key to this is all in the nutrition, the lifestyle, and the timing hacks and the protocols, like kind of what I talk about in my coaching. This is what I really get into, like giving you customized protocols to do, like specifically for hormones and the endocrine system. Massive energy, drive, libido, mood, quality of life upgrades from your hormones. Like it's such a big fundamental lever that you can pull. Like if you've never dived deep into the hormones and like actually optimizing this, you have no idea how much you're missing from the table with everything in your life. Like it just bleeds into so much that we actually do. And then also like something I never even talked about on this video either is endocrine disruptors. So like you can optimize everything, like produce more hormones, but if you're just blocking the endocrine system using disruptors like chemicals, like a lot of plastic, a lot of chemicals, like you can avoid a lot of different things that's unnatural in our lifestyle, like in our modern world, you could say, that negatively impact your testosterone, growth hormone, all the different hormones that we just talked about. If you can block the endocrine disruptors, then you're going to have just way better progress. There's like kind of two levers, like making the most like production and then minimizing the disruptors that negatively impact you. So again, this is part 1 of 2. I will make part 2 diving deeper into the other hormones that were on the other page. And if you guys do want to work with me, actually take your health and fitness to the next level, pretty much implement all the systems that I talk about, like all the things in my videos, basically giving you guys like customized protocols and systems to make sure you're making the best progress, like not holding yourself back. Like I used to do, like I wish I knew all these things when I first started. So if you guys are interested, you can click the link in the description, schedule a call with me and see if it's a good fit. But yeah, I'll make guys part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any comments, like I'm very curious to know if you guys like this video, like anything like that, like any comments you guys have, send them in the comments or send me a message on Instagram as well. But other than that, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one.